Hello, this is 4.3 types of advertising methods. So advertising is defined as the use of media to communicate with existing and potential customers to inform them of a product or service. It's really important with advertising that we get the correct message across, that we make sure the right audience see the message, and that we use the correct type of media. So when it comes to choosing advertising media, it's vital that we use the best one for your intended audience. There are different types of advertising media that we can use. We are going to focus on the ones for a small business. So we've got websites, social media, leaflets, newspapers, magazines, and radio. So starting with social media, this is probably the best known type of advertising in modern days. And what I've done is on each slide in the top right corner, I've kind of put the two main features of each of these different advertising media. So with social media, this is where we use different platforms to share posts about products and services. The examples would probably be using different platforms like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat. Each of these different platforms has got its own audience, so it's important that you choose the correct one for who you are aiming it at. Next, we're looking at the advantages. So it encourages user interaction. What that basically means is that people will comment and share your posts on social media. You can also have likes. What we've also got is a large audience. So obviously most of the different social media platforms can be accessed worldwide. So you can put stuff on and you know that many people are going to see it. It's also affordable. So most of these social media packages are free to use, and the only time that it isn't is if you pay for adverts. And if you do pay, you can actually control your budget. You can set how much money it is that you want to spend. We can also target users with particular interests using adverts. So you can actually set up a campaign to show advertisements on social media to a particular group of people. Disadvantages: adverts can annoy some people. The main thing is that people can scroll right past your advert. It's costly if you want to do it on a consistent basis with sponsored adverts. And also, you've got no control over where your adverts actually appear. So you never know where it's actually going to show up on the user's device. Next, we're looking at leaflets. So leaflets are a printed method rather than digital. And the main takeaway features are that they are fairly cheap and easy to make and difficult to target the interested, and that's because you don't always know who's going to be interested in the leaflet. So this is a physical printed method and it contains the information about the product or service. Sometimes these can be very visually pleasing. They're pretty much always portable and easy to distribute because you can give them out very easily. So advantages: they are relatively cheap compared to others. You can print off hundreds and hundreds of leaflets for quite a low cost. You can cover a specific local geographic area, so you could literally post them through people's doors of your local business. Say it was like a pizza shop, for example, you were in the local area, you could post these leaflets in very local housing. You can also provide detailed information on a leaflet. It's up to you how much to include, but you can include quite a bit. Next, we're looking at disadvantages. So we've got potential wasted product. That means that if you print out thousands of leaflets and give them out, some people won't be interested and they end up in the bin or on the floor. Sometimes it's difficult to target specific customers because you don't always know who's going to see the leaflet or who's going to be interested in it. And also, it can be sometimes seen as a little bit old-fashioned regarding advertisements. Websites is next. So websites are really important because they are very contemporary, they are of our time, they are modern. We are looking at this with our two main features: worldwide audience. providing they've got an internet connection. And also, people would actually need to visit the site in order to find out about your business or in order to see the advertisement. So a website is classed as a digital method that can be accessed through a browser, and it can be used to inform customers of the products you sell, but also to allow purchasing online. So the main thing with websites is they can reach a massive wide audience, they can increase sales at the same time, and you can also target users with particular interests if you advertise on other people's websites. So it's important to know that you can put a sponsored advert on somebody else's website. Disadvantages: adverts can annoy users. So sometimes when you see pop-up adverts and things down the side, it can just annoy people and not really have the positive effect. And also, customers need an internet connection. There can also be security issues whenever it comes to anything online. Newspapers. Main features with newspapers is that you can attract a local audience because there's a lot of local newspapers. Main thing to think negative is that newspapers are dying out. There's less and less readers all the time. So with newspapers, they are a printed method where an advert is placed inside an existing publication, usually used for local advertising. So small businesses are unlikely to use the national newspapers like the Telegraph and the Guardian, etc., because they are unlikely to want to reach a massive national audience. Small businesses are more likely to want to access their local audience, so they will use the local newspapers. Advantages are it's good for reaching local people. A reader can refer back to the advert at a later date, and you can also put quite a lot of detail into the advert in a newspaper. Disadvantages: we've got limited use of colour. A lot of newspapers are black and white only. Readers can often ignore the advert and just skip right through. And also, you could have a limited audience, so certain newspapers might not actually get read by people anymore, so they might not see the advert. And also, even when you're reading through the newspaper, you might actually just miss the advert and not really notice it. So next, we are looking at magazines. Now, magazines are one of my favorites because they can target a very, very specific audience. And we call these audience a niche audience. You can have a mainstream audience, which is where a large number of people will see it, of all different ages, genders, occupations, interests, and so on. But a niche audience is a targeted audience, very, very specific one. So the examples of this are things like a gardening magazine, a fishing magazine, car magazine, finance magazine, where it's focusing on a particular set of interests. And the main thing why this can be so powerful is because if your product is related to those particular interests, then it can help you to advertise to those people. For example, if you were advertising fishing equipment in a fishing magazine, if you were advertising cars in a car magazine, it helps you to use those particular audiences to access your products. So the advantages are we can target specific audiences. You're usually available nationally, so you can get quite a big audience. Reader can refer back to them, and also you can give detailed information. Disadvantages are you can have competing products in the same actual magazine, which is not great. And you can also going to need to plan well in advance. The reason why you need to plan in advance is because the magazine will go into print and it needs to have everything prepared in plenty of time. Next, we've got radio. Now, radio is often known as unskippable advertising, and that's because people tend not to skip the adverts. So rather than change station, people will just generally leave it on the same radio station in the background and less likely to miss the advertisements. So radio adverts are often used by small businesses, but you do need a little bit of money behind you. It can actually cost a fair bit of money to do this. So the advantages are we've got a range of stations to choose from, so you can look at the demographics of each station and pick a particular radio station for what you want to advertise. You could also target a specific group of people by doing this. You can also use local stations like Radio City, for example, and that will help you to target a particular geographic location. The other major advantage is that you can't actually skip a radio advert, you would have to change the channel. So disadvantages are sometimes they can be a bit boring because there's no images involved. They can be expensive because obviously you have got to put a bit of money into the radio station to do it. Disadvantages are the listeners could ignore the advert or they could change the station, and not all radio stations actually have advertising. So that is our overview of the different types of advertising media. Any questions, email me and I'll get back to you.